Gotham, Season 5, Episode 5, Pena, Dura.
I'm David Mazuz, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Drew Powell, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Andrew Sellon, Mr. Penn on Gotham, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Robin Lloyd Taylor, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Welcome back, Gothamites. Welcome back, fellow detectives. This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 135, about Gotham, Legend of the Dark Knight, which is into Season 5, Episode 5, Pena, Dura. I am one of your hosts, John.
And I'm your other host, Derek. Welcome back, fellow Gothamites. This was a blast of an episode. Obviously, we're going to spoil everything, as we always do on these podcasts, so make sure you've watched this one. This is crazy.
Yeah, this is a really very nutty, crazy, and exciting episode of Gotham. Really good. Cannot wait to get into the spoiler-filled review. With that, Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, the episode's directed by Mark Tondera. Great to have him back. Mark's a British director who's been on the show a couple of times, right back to Season 3. Did Season 3, Episode 18, Like the Wick. And then Season 4, he did 2 episodes. He did They Who Hide Behind Masks, which was Episode 3 of Season 4, and then Episode 6 of Season 4, which was Hog Day Afternoon with the wonderful Professor Pig. Speaking of Professor Pig, our writer, this episode is Atura Sousa, who worked with Professor Pig last season as well. Did Let Them Eat Pie, which was Episode 9, again featuring Professor Pig, as the early season did a lot. And Episode 19 she did with To Our Deaths and Beyond, as we headed towards the closeout of Season 4.
Yes, a darker version of Toy Story there.
Yes. Much like everything in Gotham, a much darker version of the world, really, as we see. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for this episode?
Sure. A friend of Jim Gordon from his past arrives as part of a military task force. Led by Eduardo Durance, his goal is to provide relief to Gotham and the GCPD, with the aim to take down the criminal elements of the city. Elsewhere, Bruce Wayne is concerned about Selina Kyle's recent behaviour and tries to seek meaning and direction from both Alfred and Harvey Bullock. Meanwhile, Ed Nigma looks for answers about his involvement in the RPG attack on Haven, and is given a shocking revelation. This leads him to his old friend Oswald Cobblepot at City Hall, and then on to the Sirens Club and Barbara, and finally back to Hugo Strange's laboratory. As the shocking and manipulating truth is revealed slowly and painfully through face fresheners, brain surgery, and then a staple gun, he is sent on a final mission by Eduardo to search and destroy Jim Gordon. Back at Wayne Manor, a ghoulish family reunion is on the offering, as guess who's back to cause some more mischief?
Unsurprising, really, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I got it really, really well with my deadpan. Yes, he's not dead.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved how they ended the episode last week with Jeremiah lying on the floor, a cloud of gas emanating around him from the smoke bomb that Bruce had dropped, just to make sure that you knew they didn't have time to check his pulse to see if he was alive. Still not sure how he got out of it. I think he was stabbed 3 times, and Jeremiah says here he needed to allow Selina to stab him at least once, but 3 times seemed like, an excessive amount to be able to get out of. But he is hurting. He does say that.
Yes, I think my joke has passed there when you said a cloud of gas. I was going to say, like me after a Tex-Mex, to be honest. But then you started talking about stabbing, which
it's not like a Tex-Mex.
It's not like a Tex-Mex.
A very bad Tex-Mex if it's stabbing in your body.
Yeah, exactly. But on to our case notes with case note number 1. Welcome, Eduardo Durance. Yes. How are you? And where have you been from Jim Gordon's life? Oh no, yes, is he back with Barbara, or is he now going on a relationship with Edward Durance, who came in the nick of time to save Jim's bacon and Harvey's as well.
Absolutely, there's definitely a bromance here with Eduardo Durance at the beginning of the episode. Maybe not by the end, but at the beginning.
Yeah,
a great moment, a proper action movie moment as they break through that beautiful stained glass window. It must have taken the production designers months to put that together, and smashed in an instant.
Exactly, with sweltering eyes and a cocked eyebrow. Yes, he is charming everyone, including the RPG seller, who doesn't last long in Edward Durance's presence.
So this guy must have been one of the richest guys in Gotham, the RPG seller, because it's kind of the go-to weapon for so many of the villains in this show. So many people seem to have an RPG in their basement, just to take out at an opportune moment to blow stuff up, So this guy seemed quite wealthy. You could see how palatial the place that he's picked out for himself is. Now, again, so many palaces in Gotham were left behind by the rich folks that ran away when No Man's Land began. But, you do wonder if this guy is just a very rich person because of all the RPGs he's selling. But not anymore, as you say, bullet to the brain.
Yeah, Jim saved by his former army buddy, Eduardo Durance here. Yeah, I mean, you sometimes forget that Jim used to be in the military, we have, obviously, the chief who became the judge, jury, and executioner.
Yes. Not the judge, Judy, and executioner.
Not the judge, Judy, but certainly the executioner. Mm-hmm. Again, loving that army style being brought to the GCPD. But here we get a real nice reminder that Jim is from the army mold, and sometimes with his sort of shoulders back and his straight back, we certainly can see that. But this is a really nice bit of interaction. I like the fact that they work together when they track down Enigma at his kind of base. But ultimately then Eduardo and Jim have to work together to prevent Eduardo from being blown up by an improvised explosive device. And I love the bookshelves here with the books that arm and then disarm the floor that has pressured IEDs all over the place.
Fantastic. Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, I really like the idea that it is the chess moves, and you work out how to turn it off by doing the chess move of a knight. But I do really like the fact as well that Jim gets this wrong, and he initially ends up at butterfly collecting with conviction before he moves on to the other book to save his pal and buddy, Eduardo Durance. But this is all a bit too buddy-buddy, really, and you do wonder why Eduardo has been, airlifted or dropped into Gotham to help Jim to take back Gotham. But it is only after they have taken down the criminal elements in Gotham that they will come into or even think about doing a full-on rescue of whoever has survived.
Yeah, anybody that survived outside of Haven, basically. There's only a few people left, really. It's just the GCPD members that are alive after that bomb. What I do love about the relationship here with Jim and Eduardo is that Jim has to kind of explain to Eduardo how things work in Gotham. Yeah. There's a great kind of bit of banter between the two of them where Jim's kind of saying to them, there are rules to the way Gotham works. People here don't just rob banks. That would be really silly. No, they have to plant bombs and give you a riddle to solve so that you can get out of it. It's kind of going, maybe you might need to take a moment to learn these rules before you get beaten. Very, very interesting. But they do get out of it. I love Eduardo's response when he's hearing about Riddler and the rules that he has to go by, the game that he has to play. And Eduardo goes, I am going to wring that nerd's neck. Really good fun. But they do get out, get away from it, and announce to the city that Ed is the bomber of Haven. So everybody in the city of Gotham is after him. Everybody can hear this. And in case people can't hear it, we do have a member of Gotham standing outside in the street with a megaphone shouting, Enigma is the Haven bomber. And everybody wants to kill him.
Yes, literally everyone and anyone is after Enigma. And I think with that, onto case note number 2.
Well, it leads perfectly into it, doesn't it? Enigma is not a murderer, well, except for Miss Kringle and Officer Doherty and, I guess, Haven now. That's a great moment as Ed's talking to himself in the mirror. A brilliantly shot moment where we have Corey Michael Smith, again, speaking to himself in the mirror as he smashes the mirror with his fist, and we see the cracked image in
really
there.
Nice shot, that, actually.
Yeah.
Just having that fractured metaphor for a personality there with the broken mirror. Really nicely done, I think. But certainly after escaping from Eduardo and Jim, he is on the run, trying to keep his head down. And I just love the fact that it is the classic plank of wood from an unknown assailant, despite millions of people having just ran past Ed Nygma. He's down in the shadows, but the classic plank of wood comes
out of
whirling out of nowhere
brilliant.
To smash him behind. And we do have the redneck family, which must just be at the opposite end of the spectrum for Ed Nygma. The redneck family with a hugely unnecessary yet ridiculously funny contraption to electrocute him slowly and painfully, and all because of poor little Jojo that got turned into a black hairy fireball in Haven.
Oh my gosh.
But he did use to smile.
Yes. Well, apparently, according to the anthropomorphizing nincompoop that says that, he did used to smile. I love that reaction from Corey Michael Smith. Really, really great. I have to say, I'm assuming he must have done about 5 or 6 takes to get that right, but a great moment between all of them there. This crazy family who are trying to kill him, even though there's 300 people died in Haven, and they're trying to punish him for killing an animal that was in there at the same time as well. He says that to them, and they go, "What? We don't care about people." Like true Gotham weirdos. I love them. Really, really cool characters. And once again, we have another really interesting one for Ed. As he gets electrocuted, he gets new images, new memories coming back into his mind. This time he's getting Penguin telling him he'll fix him. Keeps popping into his mind over and over again, giving him a little lead on which to base his investigation again. Last week we had him being beaten over the head by the lady in the wheelchair.
Absolutely.
Him getting memories back of blowing up Haven. This time it's memories of Penguin standing over his dead corpse, basically saying, "I'm going to fix you," or his dying corpse saying, "I'm going to fix him." So quite interesting to see this.
Yeah, it was really good. I did like how that followed through from last week's episode, as you said, and I think, it's even just that Ed, in this moment manages to plan his escape from the electric chair that is run by the brothers Grimm and their redneck mother by saying there's a blocked fuel line, and then they go up in fire. There's a really great sort of fire dance that one of the brothers does, which is just really funny.
Yep.
As Ed, still strapped to the chair, manages to escape and run off as they're trying to put out both the car and one of the rednecks, because he's just been set on fire. So really nice. But he does make his way then to City Hall to confront Oswald.
Yeah, and I was wondering, was that Ed's plan that he wanted to escape? Because it sounded like he wanted them to actually electrocute him more so that he could get more information and maybe more memories, but he just took the opportunity when they set each other on fire to get away, It did seem like a really weird moment, but I do love as he's crouching, walking away with the chair still attached to him. It's hilarious. But yes, he finally gets to confront Oswald and find out that he's named his dog after him.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really nice. And I mean, again, there is just that crazy Oswald Cobblepot logic.
Oh, I love this.
That comes from all of this. Where he's like, did you try and get me killed? And he's like, no, you're my best friend. Yeah, but you killed your best friend, Butch. That's the reason why I needed to keep you alive, was because I had killed my best friend, Butch. Yeah, so just that really excellent kind of twisted logic there from Oswald to justify what he's done.
It's perfectly logical, though. He's saying that he killed his best friend, so now Ed's his best friend, and he needs him even more. It's a fantastic little moment. And again, tells him that that's why he named his dog after him, because it's his best friend. And it reminds him of Ed, I guess, when Ed was a little bit more compliant in the past. But there is another beautiful speech coming from Oswald to him, where he says, if we're ever on the opposite side again, we're friends now. If we're ever against each other, you will know that it's me coming for you. I'm not going to hide behind puzzles. I'm not going to hide behind other things going on. You will absolutely know, as a friend, that we are enemies, because I would never do that to you. It's kind of an interesting speech that Oswald has for Ed. But interestingly, almost immediately afterwards, we have the building rocked by the arrival of Harvey and Eduardo Durance. And Oswald immediately goes, grab Ed, because that's what they're here for. It's hilarious. It's just that great moment. But of course, Ed's escaped by that stage. So interesting. Not really too sure whether Oswald's being on the level with Ed or not in this scene.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he is on the level, but then there's the opportunity to take him down. I mean, this is all a territory fight, basically, and he really wants to make sure that he's always top dog. And both Oswald and Ed know the power of the other person, and Penguin is absolutely clear as day that Ed can completely mess him up because he's done that already. So here's his opportunity. He'll take and look to sacrifice Ed Nigma almost immediately. But yeah, with Harvey Bullock arriving with Delta Force, they quickly effectively arrest Penguin, and Ed Nigma manages to find his way out of City Hall just in time, and Penguin's brought back to the GCPD to be interrogated by Jim. And again, once again, a great scene between Jim and Oswald here. Real great reminder as to why these two characters work so well together. Really nice interrogation scene here with Penguin probably coming off worse, but always able to squirm his way out and to convince Jim, and maybe to take a morally questionable route. Certainly one that has the dark, brooding eyebrow of Eduardo Durance being lifted at what Jim has just done, which was effectively to allow Penguin to escape from the GCPD again and set him free. Yeah.
And when Oswald returns to his safe house back in City Hall, we find out that he is about to go for a change of scenery. I like this because it looks like he's gathered together everything of any value in the city, possibly taking down Gotham Museum and taking everything from it, and every bit of the gold reserves, put it into his basement, and himself and Ed, his dog, are now going to go off and have a change of scenery. Does that mean they're getting out of Gotham? Does that mean he's going to look for a bigger house? Is he moving into the GCPD now? Because he's just been down there? I don't know what it means, but it does mean there's going to be some big change coming in the future for Oswald.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because earlier in this episode, we have Penguin with his bodyguards being given 2 black or 3 black boxes, large black boxes, which they're looking into, but we as the audience don't get to see inside, from a bunch of masked men, almost like ninjas. And he's like, yes, very good, take them off to be stored away. And then we go down into this secret vault. I love the secret passageway and the secret entrance here to this vault, seemingly with a stack of gold bars with statues and different bits of artwork. So yeah, this will be interesting to see what this change of scenery for Oswald Cobblepot will be.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. One thing just wanted to point out here, because we have this moment with Ed, this Oswald moment as well. I just thought it was interesting that both Ed and Oswald, while speaking to Jim, they both get freed in their own ways. Ed leaves the library where Jim and Eduardo were, and obviously Oswald gets out of the GCPD. And both of them have the same response to Jim when he basically says, I'm going to take you in because the people of the city are going to be chasing you. And both of them have the response to Jim that they'll take it on their own. As in, we don't trust you to keep us safe, Jim. Which I think is just quite interesting, having 2 different villains saying pretty much the same line to Jim Gordon, effectively undermining his whole concept of being in the city. The villains don't expect the GCPD to ever be taking care of them, I think is the point.
Yeah, definitely. They don't trust the institution that he works for.
Yeah.
And to be honest, maybe they know more about what's going on in other areas of Gotham than even Jim and Harvey do. I feel that they're trying to wall themselves in, whereas the others are trying to expand their territories and to really, be that mob boss type person who expands into the adjacent territory.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of difference. Jim's trying to create a safe haven, a castle on a hill. The others are trying to just expand their territory.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get on to case note number 3, because we do have another big moment in this episode for another major character. Case note number 3 is Selena, the murderer, I guess. Now, luckily, we do find out in this episode that Jeremiah is alive, so she hasn't actually murdered anybody, despite the punishment she's putting on herself, and despite the concern that Bruce has for her, because he feels that Jeremiah turned her into a murderer the same way that Ra's did to Bruce. And that was the big change that happened to Bruce when he killed Alfred under the request of Ra's al Ghul and under the control of Ra's al Ghul as well, that he did this murder that changed his opinion and his attitude forever, effectively. And he felt that something really bad is happening to Selena. I think the scene that we see in this episode between Selena and Bruce is fantastic.
Yeah.
When he tracks her down to the Sirens, where everybody's throwing her a big party for killing Jeremiah. She's getting twisted on about 15 shots, in this.
Yeah,
this place.
she's getting all the attention. I mean, it really is that moment as well. And I do wonder whether Alfred's little kind of conversation in the GCPD earlier, where he says, you can't change someone like that. You think you can, you think that she's willing to, but this may be who Selena Kyle is.
Yeah.
And as Bruce goes into the Sirens here, he's tracked Selena here and he confronts her. There is a really tough moment here.
Absolutely, yeah. He stands up to her and says, "This isn't you, Selena," when she's throwing back her 15th shot since he'd arrived in the bar. And she says to him, "What do you mean it's not me? You don't even know me." She's effectively recounting what happened in the pilot, that first moment when she entered the life of Bruce Wayne, where she was standing in the alleyway watching his family get killed. And that's how she describes the experience for her, that she just watched on. She didn't cry out. She didn't try to save his parents. She didn't try and catch the guy who murdered them as he was running down the alleyway past her. She just sat there and watched because she doesn't care. And that's her. That's her own description of herself. Bruce is absolutely right. This killing of Jeremiah, and in fact, actually the stabbing from Jeremiah to Selena, has eternally changed this character, or has changed the character at the moment anyway. As we start out this season, she's absolutely a different character than she was in any previous season, because she let her guard down, and she feels because she became friends with Bruce, this has all happened to her, and she is never one to be a victim. She'll always strike out against someone that's hurt her, as we've seen many times before. In this case, she struck out against Jeremiah, and she believes killed him because of what he did to her. And that makes her fundamentally different from Bruce, really, as David Mazouz told us.
Yeah, completely. She has, been affected. She has had a huge moment in her life, both being almost killed by Jeremiah and the revenge path that took her down. And now, you see it in the Siren. She is being praised for what she's done. This hasn't happened to Selena.
Yeah.
She is the street urchin who hides out in half-empty warehouses or abandoned buildings and homes, other than her relationship with Bruce. And here is Bruce at the moment where she seems to be getting all this attention. She's being thanked for what she's done, which is to kill this psychopath in Jeremiah, and Bruce is raining on that parade. And because of that, she questions, well, do you really know who I am? Are you sure that I'm not enjoying this? Yes, I may have changed, but maybe I needed to. It is that moment. So, Bruce ultimately is pretty despondent here, and he comes back to the GCPD to try and get some guidance from Jim, but Jim's not there, and it's only Harvey at his desk. And I must say, it's a really nice moment after having seen what has gone on in the Sirens and that speech that Selena says to Bruce, that he sees people he loves losing the will to do good.
Such a great line.
Yeah, really nicely done, and just makes the weight of Gotham on his shoulders. You can really feel that now, and the weight of other people not doing things or losing people that he loves and knows are good at heart. And you just get, in his own little way, Harvey reassuring him that, I'm here opening up cold cases, going back through the files to see if there's anything I can do to help some of these people, or the people who have been left behind by the disappearance of other people. And, just that it's the little things that help to help move things through and to get to a better place. And it's a really nice moment between Harvey and Bruce here.
It feels like we've not seen a moment between David Mazouz and Donald Logue for a long, long time, but the two of them alone is what I mean. You generally have Jim there, or you generally have Alfred there, but this moment between just Harvey and Bruce shows you that they've also got a long storied history together over the last 5 seasons, and it's really nice to see the two of them working together. And it's also nice to give Harvey something other to do than to be the Joker all the time.
Yeah, I think it's
not
really...
that he's the Joker. We know who the Joker is.
Absolutely, and I think we got that a bit in this story this week as well. Just Harvey pulls Jim out for just sending him back to the GCPD, and Jim has to explain to him, it's because you're the one that I trust. You're a good cop. Keep an eye on them. Jim then lets him go out into the field with Eduardo to bring in the Penguin. He does that, and now we have this really nice moment between him and Bruce, where Harvey, he is a street cop, a street detective. He's got that experience, and just a little bit of that leaks over to Bruce. And I really think it's nice that in this episode, you have both Harvey and Alfred imparting in different ways a bit of their experience and their advice to the young Bruce Wayne, who is seemingly weighed down by everything that has happened in the recent past with Selina Kyle.
Yep, absolutely. And we do have that moment as well with Bruce as he disappears from the screen when Harvey asks him to buy him a coffee, basically. I do love that moment. And especially because the response from Harvey is like, wow, that kid moves fast.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a sound of fluttering bat wings.
Really? Because one of our pieces of feedback actually said that. Claire Payne was asking, did we hear bat wings flapping? I didn't actually hear them myself. But yeah, that's really interesting because it definitely was heard by other people as well.
You've got to be tuned into them like the sonic clicks of a bat.
Very good. Let's get on to our case note number 4 because we have the return of one of our favourite characters, BD Wong as Professor Strange for Gotham. Oh, it's so good to have him back.
Yes, our case note 4, a very strange experience.
After doing our Doctor Strange podcast for about a year now, I'm running out of strange puns to do this. But I'm still always shocked when BD Wong appears in Gotham and the amount of people who live tweet along with ourselves and with all of the other accounts and continue to call him Doctor Strange. It's a completely different character, but they seem to get these two confused quite often. Professor Strange is a villainous character, and I think what's interesting in this particular episode, I'd kind of forgotten that he was a villain as most of the other characters in the show are, until the scenes that we see here with Ed. He really feels villainous here. He feels like he stands toe-to-toe with Oswald Cobblepot and with Ed Nigma and with all of the other villains that we have in the show. He does actually feel villainous this time, not just a scientist gone slightly overboard. He feels like he actually genuinely wants to hurt people, and that's his intention.
But he's the bad scientist without the ethics committee behind him saying, no, actually, Professor Strange, you shouldn't do that. And increasingly, he is getting more rotten and more rotten and more rotten. Exactly. And now he's got to the point where he doesn't even have an organization like Wayne Enterprises keeping him in check. He's just doing it. I mean, I love the fact that he has kind of a laundry chute here, but for dead human bodies. I think originally I was going to call it the human waste chute, but that's a different thing entirely.
Yes.
So I was going to say the waste human chute. So something like that. I thought that was just really nice because I thought it was kind of like a morgue. I thought he was putting him into one of the freezer compartments, and then his legs just went up at 45 degrees and he went on his final roller coaster ride down to some presumably grisly basement in this really dark laboratory of Hugo Strange.
We may see that area next episode, but we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. Quickly, just want to mention that that Ed finds out where Professor Strange is from his visit to Barbara Keene. What I do love about this episode, a great credit to Turo Sozo, the writer for the episode. What I love about this episode is we're coming to the end of the show, sadly, as we all know, but this moment of having Ed Nigma in episode 5 go on this kind of road trip to visit all of the people across the city is a great way to keep all of those characters involved in the show. I think it's really nice to have these moments between all of these characters again. As he talks to Barbara, and Barbara wants to kill him because, well, she always wants to kill him all the time, no matter how many times they team up. But I love the way he gets out of it. Ed goes, well, I know I blew up Haven, but do you think of me as an idiot? Do you think that's the kind of thing I would do, to blow up a whole area and then have it announced to the world that I'm the one that did that? And Barbara kind of goes, well, you've never actually struck me as an idiot, have you? No, okay, actually that means you're not the killer. Grand, you can stay alive. And then she tells him the piece of information that he needs to provide her with the biggest piece of information that she's looking for. So we'll find out what that's going to be in a future episode. But it took us about 3 or 4 times of watching this section of the episode to find out what Barbara actually says to him. Didn't work it out on a number of watchings. What she says is she can tell Ed where Professor Strange's Igors are. In other words, the people that have been stealing the bodies for him to do his work, which is quite interesting that she calls them Igors. And it took us ages. We were wondering what's an e-ghost.
I thought she said e-horses. I was like, what is that? I was like Googling it in the Urban Dictionary to see whether it's something that has completely passed me by. But yeah, I mean, this is both, this whole Strange experience here with Hugo Strange and Enigma is both really funny, really creepy, really disturbing, and it's so good. BD Wong is amazing here. He is able to turn really funny moments into creepiness, and I like the fact that you get the sense that he's with Ed. He's just going to write down who it is that has been controlling him, and then the next thing he's gassing him, which I thought was a face freshener to begin with, but it quells the nervous system, numbs him, and keeps him rooted to the spot. But you hear Hugo go, interesting how you knew what was happening, you just didn't know how it was being done. And we find out that Hugo Strange had put a chip into Enigma's brain so that it could be controlled, but he is not the one to control Enigma. It was given to other people, strange other people that we don't know of in this moment. But we then see this Frankenstein-esque sort of taking off of the top of Ed's head with his brain. So creepy. And then it being stapled back together as he has effectively turned the chip off and on again. Enigma is kind of being treated here by Hugo Strange as like a giant iPad or something like this.
Turn it off and on
Turn it off and on again, and it will sort itself out. But it is just really nice. I love the different gases that he's putting into Ed's face. When they get found out by Jim and Eduardo, he does a revive face freshener. At which point we have, I think, one of the funniest moments of this episode.
Definitely, yeah. It's really interesting because you hear the kind of commentary from Strange where he's over the top of Ed, working on his brain, with Ed's eyes are there. He's alive, he's awake. And Strange is effectively saying to him that the spray that he put in his face, it doesn't stop the pain that Ed feels, but it makes him motionless so he can't scream out effectively. And then when he wakes him up, it's instantly a great Corey Michael Smith scream because of all the pain he's gone through for the last half an hour when he's been on the table basically. But Strange,
Ed
hilarious.
Gets his nerve receptors back, and I'm just laughing my head off because he's just screaming. But we see here then in this moment, Jim and Eduardo arrive, and we begin to realize that, after the revelation to Ed from Hugo Strange that Eduardo is linked to this controlling chip that is in his brain. But it's not just Eduardo, it's also Walker, who Jim has been on the radio to, who Jim believes is the one that is trying to help until this moment. And to prove his loyalty to Walker, Eduardo asks Jim to put a bullet in Enigma's head, and Jim will not do it. He is adamant that he will not do it, and ultimately flings him down this waste human chute. And then you get that great moment where Enigma is zapped by Eduardo with this control. It looks like a phone with a white screen. Yeah. You get the eyes roll over, which is really nice, and you see, fab, yeah, it was really nicely done. And then he's given his orders. This is the reason why Enigma has been waking up in dustbins on the top of roofs, dirt under his fingernails, and he's given his orders to seek and destroy Jim Gordon. Yes. And then he chucks himself down this roller coaster chute as well. Really good. Yeah. Great scene, this. One of my favourites.
And quite a big reveal there. So Walker, the person that's been on the phone to Jim Gordon, is the one that has sent in Eduardo to capture all of the bad people in the city. I'm wondering what the purpose of it is. What exactly is the aim and the goal for Walker here? Is she trying to clean out the city so that they can take over Gotham? Is there something else there that they want to get their hands on? It's really interesting, but effectively she also wants Jim to be a complicit murderer. That's really important to her, it seems. Even though Jim knows that Ed's the one that killed all the people in Haven. He knows he didn't do it by choice. He knows that that he was in the control now of Walker and of Eduardo, so he's not going to kill Ed for that. But it's really interesting how important it was to her to make Jim Gordon a murderer. So let's see how that one pans out in the future. Any further theories as to who Walker is? I think I mentioned before my theory that possibly Walker was Echo on the outside world, that actually this is coming from inside Gotham. But now with the connection to Eduardo being sent in from outside, I guess it can't be Echo?
Yeah, I think so. And the more we've seen of Echo, she's completely unhinged, and Walker does sound at least with it. For me, I feel like Walker is like an Amanda Waller type of person.
Interesting.
A bit like we've seen in the CW series Green Arrow. So yeah,
and of course in Suicide Squad as well. She's the one that set up Suicide Squad.
Exactly. So that someone who operates, in Metropolis, Gotham, Speed City, Metro City, Star City, Aqua City, you name it.
You were so good there until you got to Speed City, weren't you?
I couldn't remember what it was.
Only 5 seasons of Flash that we've watched to make you remember Star City, John.
Yes, Star City. Bloodhaven, all this kind of stuff. Like someone who operates around here and, probably has got Boomerang in her back pocket to come in and start chucking boomerangs around or something like that.
No, that's Captain Boomerang you're thinking of there.
Yeah, Captain Boomerang.
No, interesting. That's I did see somebody mention that it was Amanda Waller, but they actually said it was because they misheard the name Walker. That's why they thought it was Amanda Waller. But very interesting. It's only one letter different. So let's see what happens in a future episode. I definitely think this is someone that we might know, and I wonder who it could be.
That sounds as though you know.
No, I do not know. We have not seen anything in the future. There's just one female character that we have not seen at all this season who was quite a big part of Jim Gordon's life in the past. Whether she'd make him a killer or not, we don't know. But we do still have
Leslie Tompkins.
Yeah,
that's true. And we've still got the Executioner to come in as well.
Maybe.
Maybe he's putting on a voice.
Possibly. You never know with Gotham.
Well, hi there.
All right, let's get on to case note number 5. I think we've run out of series on that one, obviously. Case note number 5, we had to mention it because it's quite a huge moment, obviously. We even said it last week. There was no doubt at all that Jeremiah was going to be gone for long. We thought we might get a couple of episodes without Jeremiah there to keep the mystery as to whether he was alive or not, but absolutely not. He's back this episode, stabbed, stitched back up, kind of hurting from the stitches, but that's about it, really. But interestingly, he reveals something that we weren't aware of from the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, we saw the soothsayers forcing kids to dig a tunnel that they were being told was to get out of the city of Gotham. We did hear one of them complain that the actual plans that were there were a bit crazy because they seemed to be too high and the water would break in if they continued to go the way they were going. Well, it seems like it's actually reached its destination, and the destination was nowhere near going outside of Gotham. It was a tunnel underneath the city to Wayne Manor. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Although there is part of me about how does that work regarding the Batcave. Because he does come out of the fireplace, and I'm like going, okay, well, there's future Bruce Wayne's secret passageway completely ruined because the Joker knows about it.
Or created, is my point. He's now got a tunnel going from the centre of the city to underneath Wayne Manor. Is this going to be the tunnel that he uses in the future to take the Batmobile from Wayne Manor to the city?
That could be it exactly, but it does kind of come to the point that ultimately Jeremiah is not the Joker, because otherwise the Joker knows about these series of tunnels, and then the other juicy thing that it kind of maybe brings into focus is this idea that, the two of them do have to exist together. So even though the Joker knows about all of these, he's never going to blow them up or use them or use his forces against Bruce Wayne or Batman because they're just one happy family. And of course, we see him here, Jeremiah, trying to force a happy family back onto Bruce Wayne, we think. We don't see their faces, but there is a certain suggestion that, like an artist, an ice artist with an ice sculpture, we've got the plastic surgeon here chopping away, stapling away, sewing here, adding bits of collagen there, you name it, to create replicas of Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Well, luckily we didn't get to see any of that. We just saw him take off the bandages to the two heads that were facing the opposite direction. But yes, this is really, really interesting. If you told me 5 seasons ago, after that murder in the alleyway, that we actually might get to see Martha and Thomas Wayne return to the show in the future, I would say you're crazy. I think after 5 seasons of watching the show, well, nothing really surprises me completely. Nothing completely shocks me. But this was still a moment. It's one of those ones which is kind of a rule in comic book history and comic book lore. Everybody can come back from the dead. Well, except for Thomas and Martha Wayne and Uncle Ben from Spider-Man comics. They're kind of the only people that ever stay dead in comics.
That's true, actually.
They form the fundamental center of Bruce Wayne. Now, we did hear a comment from Echo a couple of episodes ago when she was talking to Selina and in that fight with Selina, saying that she knows everything about Bruce Wayne and about her. She knows everything about their history. Herself and Jeremiah have been doing their research, which is why they've obviously created these copies of Martha and Thomas Wayne, because they know everything about them. So they've got some inside information. They've hidden the fact that Jeremiah is not dead. So Bruce and Selina both think that he's dead. So what is the plan when Thomas and Martha Wayne are waiting in Wayne Manor for the return of Bruce to the house? What's the plan going to be?
Well, he loves a family reunion, and it's here to mess with his mind. Mm-hmm. Surely Bruce is compos mentis enough to realize that these two people are obviously not going to be his mum and dad. Mm-hmm. So it is to mess with his mind. We know here as well that Jeremiah's death is part of this plan as well, because both Selina and Bruce need to think that he is dead so that he can exploit the situation. So that might trouble Bruce more, because he thinks Jeremiah is dead. So who is doing this? Why is it being done? Is Bruce going to be drugged so it feels like a dream sequence of some description like we got with Ra's al Ghul and the monastery? Because there were some really good moments in the last season.
Absolutely.
So,
and the one with Poison Ivy, where she poisoned him, and he saw the future of all of the characters of Gotham with their comic accurate costumes, which was quite cool. This could be something quite drug-fueled next episode, as we see maybe the return of Martha and Thomas Wayne. I don't have any other theories about who these two characters would be, so I'm guessing. And I did feel like the clothes they were wearing even were the clothes that they were wearing in the alleyway that night. So very interesting way of messing with Bruce Wayne's mind. We did get the reference to it again from Selina, saying that night in there, you were the scared child. And that's what Bruce has been running away from for all of these years since, is running away from that moment when he felt so scared and so out of control. So putting him back into that moment is very interesting.
Although, I think this is just how crazy Gotham has gone, how outlandish it is, that Derek had to pull me back from the idea that Jeremiah had reanimated the corpses of Martha and Thomas Wayne to simply suggesting that it was two people that had been sort of brainwashed maybe by Jeremiah and Echo, who had just had plastic surgery done to them. Yes. So I kind of thought that these were zombie Martha and Thomas Wayne to some extent, reanimated, a few things slightly loose on them, on their appendage, but ultimately, we're going to be wobbling towards Bruce, going, Bruce, we're back.
Well, luckily it hasn't gone that crazy, so no, definitely just surgery. Let's see what happens in the future episode. This is so exciting, though. Really, really interesting moments here with Jeremiah and seeing him back. I think the only thing with that, just to say, is I do think he's come back too easily. I think having that break of a week where the episode ended, or the last moment we saw with Jeremiah last week was him lying on the ground after being stabbed multiple times by Selina. It felt like a really too easy piece of explanation to go, well, the stitches are itchy, as he says to Echo. Yeah. It felt like just a way too easy way, because I've seen so many posts in Facebook groups, so many posts on Twitter, so much commentary on Reddit, so many podcasts talking about, is he dead, is he not, to explain it away with just one line of dialogue going, well, the stitches are itchy.
Yeah, definitely. I think if it was 22, 23 episodes for this season, like it had been for the previous ones, I think we would have had those maybe 1 or 2 episode breaks here. But this is a roller coaster shuttling along.
Absolutely.
Very quickly. And so I suppose that's the only reason.
Absolutely. Speaking of the change from 22 episodes to our final 12 episodes this season that we're going to get, another interesting one pointed out by a member of our Facebook group, Patrick Lemke, going to give him full credit on this because I didn't see it first time myself, but pointed out about 14 minutes into the episode, we hear the conversation, obviously, with Eduardo saying that he's going to take down all of the bad guys in Gotham. That's what they're there for, is to take down everybody. So they're going to go after people like Mr. Freeze and people like Firefly and people like Zaz that are out in the city. They're going to take them all down. But really interestingly, if you pause on about 40 minutes in, it's just after Ed gets hit over the head by the plank. So there's a good little indicator for you. You'll see a character being hauled into prison or into the GCPD by Eduardo Durance's men. And he's wearing a black mask on his face. A Black Mask is a very big villain in the comic books. He's one of the last kind of mob bosses, I suppose. One of the biggest mob bosses after all of the Falcones and Moronis and all those characters are by the wayside. He's a mob boss that we see in the comic books. Now, interestingly, they did reference the character of Black Mask back in season 1. We had Richard Sionis being a guy that wore masks and had masks all around the walls of his house. In the comic books, Roman Sionis is the character Black Mask. He's the son of Richard Sionis. So there is a possibility that we could have had Roman Sionis in season 5 of Gotham, and they had the clothes around, possibly. They had the costume around, and they'd maybe cast, or maybe they just got an extra to wear the costume, just as a reference to Black Mask. But so interesting that it was only on screen for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, definitely. Really good spot there, Patrick.
Yeah, will we see him break out of prison and have an episode later on this season? Will there be a moment where there's Black Mask, or would we only have gotten that if we have the 22-episode season? So really, really cool to catch that little moment. But definitely check it out, fellow Gothamites. If you have the chance to watch the episode again, check out 14 minutes in to see that still. Or pop on over to our Facebook group or our Twitter account and you see the screen grab that we got from the episode. John, as usual, time for our Gotham moment of the week, and I think there's only one contender for this one.
Well, there's a few. There are a few in this, I think, definitely.
Well, I'm going to go for my one. The electrocution of Ed by the owners of JoJo. I think there's nothing more Gotham than being tied up to a chair out in the street, to a car up on blocks, and being electrocuted by some crazy owners of a pet that you might possibly have killed in some crazy mind control moment. That's totally Gotham for me.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the moments of the week surround Ed Nigma as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think him being reanimated by Professor Strange, where he does the little face spray and then all the pain shoots through him, that is a moment of the week as well.
Excellent.
Along with the plank of wood to the back of the head. Perfect comedy timing there. Really nice.
And one of the quick one on Ed as well, just to mention, that just made me laugh each of the 3 times that I watched this episode. I don't know why. It's when he's listening back to the tapes of himself waking up every morning, saying everything and trying to take the crazy notes in the notepad, and then just screams out going, "This is absolutely useless," as if shouting back to his former self and going, "Why couldn't you give me more information than I woke up this morning and I'm covered in water, or I woke up this morning and I'm covered in dirt?" I think that's a very funny scene that Ed's playing again off himself.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the other moments of the week is where Jim is interrogating Oswald, and Penguin here is really kind of saying, come on, Jim, he does riddles, games, and maybe the odd killing here and there, but he's being controlled here. He's not a mass murderer, he's a patsy. And I really, really like that moment from Oswald. Kind of just saying it as it is, but again, there's some really nice lines in this episode.
Yeah.
Ed saying, "Have you called your dog after me?" Things like some nice little references. I think the type of questions we'd really like to ask ourselves here. So really nice moments here. I think onto Gotham character of the week, there's certainly the redneck lady with her 2 sons, her crazy sons. Maybe they're not her sons. It could be her lovers or her 2 husbands.
Maybe.
Who knows what's going on? But again, a outlandish character here, putting Jojo up, anthropomorphizing him.
Absolutely. People? We don't care about people. If there's been a more Gotham line in the last season, I've never heard it. Fantastic.
And I think Edward the Bulldog is a good character this week. He got quite a bit of face time here, both with Oswald going down to his secret vault, but also when Ed asks Oswald whether he named his dog after him. You just see Edward kind of looking up, panting, sort of expectantly at his master. So really nice to see Edward the dog getting some quality time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, obviously, Eduardo Duran's first episode in here, we know he's going to be back in future episodes. It's great to see him in here. We don't normally give our Gotham character of the week to someone that has a recurring role in the show, so I think we're going to see a lot more of him. Really excited to see his transformation as we go later on into the show. Very, very interesting to see this character in here, this episode. My favourite moment of live tweeting when this episode was on was as he appeared on screen, just saw a tweet roll by on my screen going, wow, Eduardo Durance is kind of hot. Love that little moment as someone realises that they've got a new crush in a TV show. Always good. John, do you want to tell us how you would rate this episode of Gotham?
I would rate this episode as 5 anthropomorphizing nincompoops out of 5. Absolutely. Yeah, this was the best so far, I think, in season 5 for me. Pena, Dura. It was just completely out there. Yeah, I loved Ed searching the city, trying to find out why it is he couldn't remember. And then it culminating with him and Hugo Strange with this face-off between the two, which ultimately has Hugo Strange cracking Ed's head like a freshly boiled egg, seeing the brains inside, realizing then that Eduardo and Walker are not all that they seem, and you see them controlling Edward with this chip and going after Jim Gordon. I really like the little touches between Bruce, Alfred, and Harvey, but also with Selina. That's really interesting to see how that's going to progress. And then, of course, you have the final crazy, wazy, lemon squeezy thing right at the end, where we have Jeremiah waking up. Of course he's not dead. Of course he put a tunnel right through Gotham up to Wayne Manor. And of course he has paid someone to plastic surgery the absolute hell out of 2 people to bring back Thomas and Martha Wayne. Also, we think. So just a roller coaster of a ride, just like that corpse on his final journey down to the basement of Hugo Strange's lab. This is a roller coaster, and I thought it just all came together really well in this episode. So yeah. 5 anthropomorphizing nincompoops out of 5.
Fantastic. Oh, I have to mention there is a great line from Professor Strange that we forgot to mention, where he says to Ed, "Oh, when I was fixing your stab wound, I just decided to have a bit of a tinker in your brain," which I think is hilarious because only Professor Strange would think that's acceptable, right?
Definitely.
After that, let's get on to our feedback on this episode. And our first piece of feedback comes from Selena's Witch over on our website. Just left a comment on the last episode on Gotham Season 5, Episode 4, over on our website at gothamtvpodcast.com. She says, "I'm absolutely loving this final season, and I loved this episode. The only thing that I don't like about this show, and it's shown itself throughout all of the seasons, is that death is absolutely meaningless. If you die, you can just be brought back within the next episode, and it takes away any meaning death should hold." Well, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to like episode 5 then, because we didn't even get Jeremiah gone for more than one episode. He was back almost immediately after what looked like a pretty tragic series of stabbings to him.
Yeah, thank you, Selena's Witch, for the feedback. I think even as we see in this episode, death doesn't hold too much, even for Martha and Thomas Wayne, who normally have been exempt from this rule that is in the comics, not just within this show as well. But certainly, yes, some of those elements sometimes mean less because death means nothing. But I also do like the fact that you can also bring back some of these great characters again and again. It does help. But thank you, Selena's Witch, for that feedback. Really good to hear from you.
Yep, thanks so much. Our next piece of feedback is some voicemail from Claire Payne.
Crikey, Pena Dura was an awesome episode. The introduction of Shane West was done really well, as you got the feel for what kind of friendship or maybe even a rivalry between Eduardo and Jim straight away. I think while watching, you could see the control being taken away from Jim and how the city needs to be rebuilt. My characters of the week is the family who are electrocuting Ed. Gretel and her sons wanted revenge on Ed for killing their dog. I don't know whether I was meant to laugh as much as I did in that scene. I also thought it was a good episode to focus on Ed and finally find out what is causing his blackouts. Straight away, Ed manages to put doubt in Jim's head if he's actually is the Haven killer by saying he doesn't kill innocent people like people at Haven. I loved the intensity of the scene where Jim had to find the book to finish the chess game, or was Ed bluffing? Ed's emotions in his need to find answers made me realise he is a character that once he knows what is happening, he can deal with it. The twist was great in how Ed was getting his blackouts. We all knew Hugo Strange was connected. When mentioned that Ed had a chip inside of his brain, I did frown, but the continuous story of why Strange put it there in the first place is a great twist. I looked at the perspective of the story from Hugo Strange. Penguin gives him Ed to fix, and in the meantime he has been given a contract from the female voice now we know is called Walker. Professor Strange knows Ed because of his time in Arkham and the split personality Ed can go between. So it was clear Ed was the perfect person at the right time to carry out his experiment, and we all know what joy Hugo Strange gets out of his experiments. Selina and Bruce was a good emotional scene. Selina, I think she does care, but she needs the space to be who she is now. Bruce will always watch out for her, even though Selina's broken his heart. Talking to Harvey about people losing the will to do good made me realise just how important the need to do good is to the character of Bruce Wayne. Nice advice from Harvey, who feels the same, but he's right. It is the small things that matter. So good to see a reunion scene between Ed and Oswald. I was so surprised how Penguin was generally upset that Ed had blown up Haven. It's a friendship that runs deep, so that Penguin chooses Ed over Butch. Another well-written, engaging scene between these two characters. Looking forward to seeing Penguin's new change of scenery. Many thanks, Claire Payne.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claire, for your voicemail. It's really good to get your thoughts. And thank you for pointing out that the crazy redneck lady's name is Gretel. So, yeah.
Well done.
I didn't spot that at all. So, Gretel and her sons, or are they?
Stop it. That's such good feedback, Claire. Thanks so much for your thoughts about the episode. There's some really interesting points that you make in there. The removal of the power that Jim has in the city of Gotham. Yeah, that does something that comes across, and I love that Oswald uses that against Jim to get his way again. You know, he says to him, "Oh, well, I didn't know that Eduardo was the one in charge. I thought you were the one in charge, Jim." You know, a nice little moment from Oswald using every little bit of information to get his own way. As you say, Ed and Oswald together on screen, always good. But that painful moment when the note is passed to Oswald saying that Ed is the one that blew up Haven, you can see it in his face, just going, "Oh, not Ed. Why did you do this, Ed?" kind of thing. You know, really, really good moment for them. And absolutely, really excited to see what this change of scenery is going to be for Ed and Oswald.
Definitely.
There's too many Eds now. We've got Ed Nigma, we've got Edward the dog, and we've got Eduardo Durance now, don't we?
Yeah, they're all going to merge into one Edward.
I think we need to stick to calling Riddler possibly Durance and maybe Edward the dog. Maybe.
Yeah, it's not Ed the Duck like we used to have as children of the early 90s in the UK. It's Ed the Dog.
Ed the Dog, exactly. Again, thanks very much for the voicemail, Claire. If you want to send us in any voicemail for our podcast about any of your thoughts on the show, you can go over to our website at gothamtvpodcast.com, click the send voicemail button, and you can record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts, or do what Claire did, record 2 separate voicemails for us, and we'll stick them together when we put the episode together. Or finally, of course, you can send us an email, just record an MP3 of your thoughts, and send us an email to feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com.
Yeah, and the final way to get in contact with us is, of course, over on our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/Gotham TV Podcast. And with that, some episode 5 feedback over on our Facebook group. Sam Bacter says there were some interesting twists, particularly with Enigma, Strange, and Eduardo. And I'm really curious who those 2 people Jeremiah saw at the end were. I wonder if they're being made to look like Thomas and Martha Wayne. That's kind of the impression I came away with. Thanks, Sam, for that. Definitely thought the same thing. I really feel as though Thomas and Martha Wayne are back from the grave, or at least have been given a makeover.
Well, yes, somebody's been given a makeover to look like Thomas and Martha Wayne. Yes, that's what we think. So excited to see what's going to happen with that one. Trisha Branchcombe just simply says, this episode was fantastic. Patrick Lemke says, as I mentioned earlier on, he spotted Black Mask in the episode being escorted to a cell in the scene where Eduardo and the GCPD gather up all the remaining sectors. I guess they originally had plans for him this season if it had gotten 22 episodes, and he's wondering if it would have been Roman Sionis, the son of Richard Sionis. we did see Richard Sionis getting killed by Jerome, I think it was, a couple of seasons ago. Back in season 2, I think, when Jerome broke out of Arkham Asylum. So,
yes, that is true.
Yeah, so we'd never actually seen Roman Sionis on screen, but it'd be interesting to see. And we know death is never permanent in this show. So
no, exactly. The reanimated corpse of Richard Sionis back from the dead, no doubt. Or is he? Yes, Richard Blaze says, literally took the normal madness of Gotham and then cranked it up to 11. Seriously, I don't know where to start to try and dissect that. It was just superb. Yeah, they really did crank it up to 11. Yep. I'm loving it. I'm really loving how they just amplify this show and make it really just mental, really, and crazy. As you say, they did the crank up to 11 for sure. Thanks, Richard, for the feedback. And our final bit of feedback comes through to Facebook as well from Claire Payne. Claire asks, did anyone else hear flapping of wings sound when Bruce did his fast disappearing act in the scene with Harvey? Certainly did, Claire. We must have that special ability to hear flapping wings, or at least the sonic clicks of bats.
Unfortunately, I don't. I didn't hear it, unfortunately, so I obviously don't have that ability. But yeah, really interesting. I'm definitely going to have to put my ear closer to the screen next time, maybe. And John can tell me exactly where that flapping is. Thanks so much for all of the feedback this week. Really good to hear from you guys. Want to hear from you as the rest of the season progresses. Make sure you get in contact with us and just tell us how you're feeling about the show and how you're feeling about this final season. You can, of course, get us over on Twitter at Gotham TV Podcast. We usually live tweet the episodes as they're coming out, if we're able to. Not always possible, unfortunately. Now, we are on break after this episode up until the 14th of February. The next episode airs on Fox on the 14th of February, called 13 Stitches. And unfortunately, Gotham TV Podcast is going on holiday for a few days around that time. But the episode will be a bit later out, and we won't unfortunately be able to watch it live as it comes out. So we'll be back, I think, on the 19th. So we'll record our thoughts and we'll get our podcast out as soon after that as we possibly can. And then we're cracking through to the end of the season after that. Thanks so much for joining us, fellow Gothamites. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yeah, as always, fellow Gothamites, thank you so much for listening. It's really good to have these discussions with you. I'm off to go and do a kind of massive electrifying contraption just by my shed. But after that, once I've electrocuted myself probably a few times, maybe even set myself on fire, who knows?
Please don't.
I'll try not to. We'll be back to speak with you again soon. Ta-ta for now. Bye.
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 I'm David Mazouz, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Drew Powell, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Andrew Sellon, Mr. Penn on Gotham, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Robin Lloyd Taylor, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.